Good morning, my outstanding friends. My name is Roger Spur. I've been doing this for a long time, mud fossils, and an investigation of our ancient past. Now, today, I noticed this about Neanderthals and how they don't think they're necessarily a separate species from us now. So they're going back and forth, they're on the fence. They say we have interbred a number of times. We're going to go through this in a second. But what I want to point out is I'm going to start doing a deeper investigation of Notoes, and I may get DNA done on the Notoes, which are a separate species as far as I'm concerned. They're nothing like the human. This is a foot from a Notoe, and the toes are built into the foot. It almost looks like it has a sole on the foot, but it doesn't. It's built in as a unit. And of course, oops, I discovered the giants, and this is just crazy as can be, but it's true. This is a footprint, and I think that footprint is from a Notoe. It fits exactly perfect, even with the balls of the foot. And there is no toes in here. You can see there's no toes. And that is a footprint. That's no question whatsoever about that. And it fits virtually identical to this footprint with the balls right there that you see here, and that cavity that goes right down the center you see here. You have to get them in the correct light. And of course the heel hit there. And it has the heel, same thing. And there's no question this is a foot. What it's from, it appears to be something different than anything that's alive now. And of course I found all the giants and all that stuff. So we're going to get deep into this investigation of what is this? This is from a period apparently that was before the modern era, is what Yale says. This was from a great worldwide flood, just like it said in the Bible. Heavy salts, heavy silicon. I understand all that because of the breakdown turning into feldspar, which is aluminum silicates breaking down from the phospholipids. I've done all the chemistry. I know the whole thing about it. I got CAT scans, the DNA. I'm going to show you all that stuff now. And it relates to our ancient past. And there is so much that's not understood about our ancient past. It's just time to do this in a correct manner and get some people on board that will listen, even though it is so spectacular. It's beyond the average person's ability to believe that it's possible. This is a hair follicle. All right, this is a hair follicle. And I will show you the erector pili muscle, the sebaceous gland, the vein and artery, the root, the shaft, and compare it right there to the anatomy of a normal hair follicle. Now, what kind of a creature it's from, I don't know, but it could have been a human, because the size of the creatures, the ones that I have, and I'm going to show you all my evidence right now, because I have so much evidence nobody can say. That's a hand. This is a fingertip 3 feet long. This stuff is DNA tested, DNA tested, DNA tested, DNA tested, CAT scans, all of that stuff. All right, so I have all the evidence to support every word I'm saying, and now it's time to do some investigation. I know I can get blood out of this. I know I can. I have not. The other ones I had DNA tested were the giants. I just wanted to see if the giants, how they compared to a human, because anatomically they're virtually identical. I mean identical. This is not. This is different. And I also know of people that have other species that are unknown and came from this era of this great worldwide flood. And that's exactly what Yale says. And they said it was a heavy, rapid precipitation. They just all know that there was just a lot of water. Where it came from, they have no idea. It was when Venus almost hit Earth. We're going to go through all this stuff. This is so deep that you can't flash this. You can't just say, oh, this, and have a nice day. No, it doesn't work that way. This is a whole new dimension on our existence. Nobody's known about this since probably Hesiod, who wrote about all of these events and things that we laughed at, and Apollodorus and all these people that wrote about these giants and creatures that were extraordinary, to say the least, and the great worldwide flood that removed them from history. And even Yale also agrees that it could have been a failed evolutionary experiment. I presented all my evidence to Yale, and eventually they finally published a paper saying exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. And they repeated precisely what I sent to them about heavy silicates, rapid fossilization due to the waters and so forth, and they just basically reprinted what I said and took credit for my work, which I don't feel is correct, but that's the way they do things, I guess. I'm going to show you, and then they refuse to engage with me on this. This is what annoys me. These are people that are supposed to be interested in discovery. That's just not the fact. That is absolutely not true. Not a single academic has responded in any way showing any interest whatsoever in 15 years. 15 years. I published a book 8 years ago in frustration about this. And Velikovsky was the one that did all the research pointing to when these events occurred, and every culture on Earth had the same story. All right, the same story. So how would they know? Some of them had no intervention with the other cultures. They were just totally separate. And they had the same basic story, the same basic time. Every one of them talks about giants. Every one of them talks about dragons. Every one of them talks about immortals and all of these battles in the skies, or India, everyone. Every single one of them had the same story. So do we laugh at that? I don't. I say, let's see if there's any validity to it. And sure enough, there is a hell of a lot of validity. And now we're going to do that examination of evidence. Not theories, oh, it's 500 million years ago and this happened. Because that's what they're saying. This is 500 million years ago. No. This was sitting right on the top of the surface of the Earth. How did it get to the surface? Everything I got. And I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of specimens that and some of them are so spectacular, as you will see. And DNA testing, CAT scan, and all of that stuff. So let's see the evidence. That's all I can say. Let's look at the evidence. Okay, this is a DNA test I had done. There was 3 samples in this test. This was back from 7 of 2015 to 9 of 2015. So it took a few months. And this was, the company that did this got assaulted. He contacted me and he said, make sure that everybody understands that you were the one that extracted the samples, because if they were contaminated, that's on me. I did extract the samples. I extracted them literally from almost raw blood. It was dried primarily, but I just put them in glassine bags, sent them off to be tested. I was very careful the way I did it, protective, everything. And they did all kinds of tests on them, and negative controls showed up. There was no contamination. And these were the 3 things. And I just showed you, 36-inch fingertip, gigantic. And that was excellent quality. The lung was excellent quality DNA. It was just like virtually you could transplant the thing. It's almost perfect. And the mud tip was more invaded, so it was not as good quality, but it was still good. And these were the 3. Whatever they do, the test is here. But again, I was the one that extracted it. So if I faked it or I didn't do it correctly, that's on me. But they're available to be tested, so that's not a problem. Everything was negative. Controls were negative. And it comes down to excellent quality DNA was obtained from a 36-inch tip. The stuff I sent to them from the 36-inch tip. Obviously, I didn't send them the thing that weighs about 500 pounds. And also from the lung sample. Hold on, the lung sample is right here. And all you do is drill a hole inside to get the blood out. The blood is literally leaking out of here. This is virtually like brand new, this lung. And they all died flat one side basically is flat. And it was from a flood. There was nothing but mud and flood and boiling hot waters from Venus. Exactly what Velikovsky said. This is the depression of the heart. So the whole guy's body died like this, and everything washed away from it because the heart still left its impression there. So the whole body must have died at one time like this, and then it got all washed around and banged around or whatever. And again, this preservation could have happened literally within days. I think Yale says it could have happened within hours, is what they're saying, I think. I told them it could have been almost instantaneous, so they must have grabbed hours, I think. Well, hold on, let me see. All right, this is Yale's paper. Again, this was long after I gave them all this information. Exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures promoted by silica-rich oceans. Precisely what I sent to them. Now, here's the little blurb they sent out. And this is what they say, is a big part of the answer involves how these fossils were able to form. And I present that, I know exactly how they form. The animals themselves were entirely soft-bodied. That is not true whatsoever. They had bones in them, like this bone here. That's a bone. But it turns into a mud fossil because of the conditions it was in. So they think it must have been soft to turn into mud. No, it's called nucleophilic substitution and invasion. And all of my stuff is basically the same. They just don't understand it at all. So they say even the bones and the teeth and everything were soft. No. What researchers realized, they said, was the oceans during the time were much richer in dissolved silica. That's because the outside surface of the body has 50 times more silicon in it than the inside. And it dissolved in this hot, boiling water flood. So they had all the silica, which is exactly what I told them in my papers. This enabled the transformation of the loose sand, not loose sand, it was mud, to turn these animals into rock to occur over a matter of hours. Now, I don't think it was with hours, but it wasn't long. And they say in a matter of hours or years rather than in millions of years. And this was just, and they also say it was, hold on a second. They're talking about a failed experiment. Hold on. This is really deceptive. They say that we would love to understand the relationship between the animals that evolved after this event, because they say the Ediacarta organisms, which is this one layer, could it have been a failed evolutionary experiment? Which it was. They had to wipe off all of the giants and the monsters and dragons and all that stuff, which they did. So they want to know, was it a failed evolutionary experiment? So yes, Yale, it was. Here's a little more information for you. And here, this is so deceptive. Listen to this. The Ediacarta organisms were rapidly buried by sand. No, it wasn't sand, it was mud during the underwater storm events, the author writes. This process of cementing the sand, no, it wasn't cement, it was sand, it was mud. This is why they're trying to be so deceptive, trying to take credit for it. Oh, no, it wasn't mud, it was sand. Like hell it was mud. And they say it was a sand around them must have happened rapidly. It was a global worldwide flood. It's one layer worldwide. Because otherwise, by the time the carcasses rotted away, which they didn't, they boiled away, the sand burying them would have simply collapsed into the hollow left by the erstwhile carcass. They don't rot away when they're covered in mud. They're talking about sand. Totally, very, very deceptive. And as far as I'm concerned, they plagiarized my work. It's exactly what I told them, and they put out their paper in 2016. I already had the DNA tests and CAT scans. All this stuff was done long before that. In 2015, I had everything done. Okay, I decided not to do the entire presentation today because literally this is going to take many hours to go through all of the evidence. But I started to look up what are Neanderthals' feet look like, and this came up. But there's all these different looking feet, and from different cultures. It appears to me. Now, if this is true, I don't know. But we have found them like that, cut right across, and then we found them like this, with the Notoes just round as can be. Other ones cut straight across just like that. I have other ones that are straight right across like this. And then I have another one that you can't believe. It's got a big ball like this in the front and a little tiny heel in the back. Absolutely enormous looking thing. So there was all kinds of different creatures with different kinds of feet. And this was prior to the Great Flood. So what was here was giants, dragons. Like, again, this is the hair follicle. I don't know if I showed this up close, but this is a book I wrote in 2015 because I was so pissed off about my treatment, because the same thing happened to Velikovsky. So I wrote Mudfossils and Velikovsky and minds in collision, because their minds, they couldn't accept it. They just collided with reality and forget about it. See, reality, you stay that way, my mind stays this way. That's what happened to virtually every PhD. I call it PhDolia, which is usually they say pareidolia, you see things that aren't really there. Well, PhDolia means you can't see what's right in front of your face, and that's exactly what happened. Not to engage with me after being able to show this, where this is the erector muscle right there, makes your hair go up and down like this. This is the sebaceous gland right there. There's the hair shaft, and their shaft has a flat hair coming out, and they tell me that's a curly-haired person. This is the root coming straight down, and it comes straight up. This is exactly identical. Now, these two little round dots there are from the vein and artery. This is a root of a hair. Now, the size of the creature would be absolutely gigantoenormous. Now, all of these creatures apparently were living here at the same time, giants and small creatures and all kinds, because these are the same size as us. And the lung and the big hand, the two other giants, the lung is our size, the two giant things here. Again, we're going to have to go through this. These were CAT scanned by Jesse Grant and Associates, and I want to shout them out because they did 7 CAT scans for me, no charge. And what work they did, you could never even imagine. These are surface scans, and that's the best thing you can do for mud fossils, is surface scans. The mud fossils like that, when you get deep inside of them, like here, you can't hardly see it, but that's the bone. All right, you see the little shadow? That's all you're going to get, because it's been completely nucleophilically substituted. Now you can see this was the fingertip. And the bone obviously goes in the fingertip, and there's the bone right there. But when you look at that, you just see a rock. There's the tendons, and there's the vein, the black one, and there's the artery. They go clear. But that's the fingertip looking from here, like looking the back of it here. And you can also see where the fingernail was. These details, you could never see that. You would never see that fingernail without the CAT scan. And again, Jesse Grant and Associates, you want something done right, a CAT scan, believe me, we had it other places too, and they were absolutely horrifyingly terrible. And this is Jesse Grant right here. These guys are unbelievable, absolutely phenomenal. Internal part inspections. They can look deep into anything, literally anything, as far as I can tell. CAT scanning, X-ray sorting services. They do aerospace, archaeology, automotive, consumer products, defense, energy, medical devices, and they can see basically into virtually anything with the technology they have. And they did an absolutely fabulous job for me. And Jesse and Fabio, I will never forget you, my friends, and I thank you so deeply from the bottom of my heart for your assistance. Unfortunately, it's been quite a long time. That was 8 or 9 years ago, and it hasn't been accepted. And I haven't talked much about Jesse because these people attack anybody that had helped me. They actually attack them, and the same thing happened to it happened to everybody. So they all stay away from me. They don't want to get attacked. So that's what's happened. Anyway, to investigate this correctly, this is going to take some time. But this is Jesse Grant, and again, Jesse, thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend. And the work was spectacular. So this is one of the hands. It's a left hand, the palm, And that's on a bed sheet, so I think it was close to 4 feet wide. And that's the tendon that runs down. This is the cleave between the pads of your hand. The thumb goes off here. And the fingertips I had scanned and so forth. And that's the little hand, 4 feet wide. This is the big one. This is the fingertip, just the tip of a finger. That's the fingernail. That little pad there is what bumps up to your next bone so that it rocks on there. These two are the vein and the artery. They all have a vein artery coming up, a big one. And because that's where your terminal ends and your blood circulates back. This was perfect, absolutely flawless when I found it. So I had to break off this so I could get down inside, because the surface you can't really get any blood out of. You either got to drill into it or you got to break it and cut it or whatever to get down. And then there's blood, a lot of blood, especially in the fingertips and the hearts and stuff. So I popped that and it came off with the fingerprints. All right, don't forget, this is the fingernail. You see it? That's the fingernail. It comes all the way right up around, just like your fingernail. I mean, and it was in pretty good shape. You know, it's a little flaked off. You see how there's a little, it's a little flaked off here, and so that's a little higher than most of the rest of it. But other than that, it was virtually perfect. Now, what came off of that piece that I broke off? Well, here it is right here. Fingerprints. You see that? My thumb is about the size of one fingerprint ridge. All right? And these two are the sweat pores. They have sweat pores in your fingerprint ridges. That's just what they're made that way. And that's exactly what we got here. And underneath, it was just saturated with blood. Down in here is all the blood. Up here, see, it's like a mat. This is called grip skin, friction skin, traction skin. There's a lot of different names for it, but it's extremely keratinized, cornified, hard, and tough, and it's expendable. So there's no real vitality to it. It's just tough, so that you can do work with your hands and your feet. And that's what was on top of this. Where'd it go? Right here. That piece was right on here. And when I banged it, it just popped right off. And underneath, there was a lot of blood. They're saturated with blood. See, there's two pieces come up in the front. I showed you those two spots. And then inside, they're just saturated with blood. Their thumb. So again, this is going to be a very long and detailed discussion about what we have not been allowed to discuss. It's not that it hasn't been available to be discussed. It's not allowed. And these are the universities that you're sending your kids to for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and they are not allowed to think. They're not allowed to think. This, when you see this curve right here, I looked at this and I said, how could that be? I could see there was no toes. And I could see the balls of the feet, and I could see that cleave coming down, and that fit exactly to the Notoe. And then I saw this, and I thought, what is that? There's like a rounded piece. Well, let me show you where it is. I found it. That rounded piece is right there. You see it? That's the piece that hit right there. This one here digs down. This one rolls over. You see it? Don't forget, that's the rollover part. All right, and here it is. Right here, there's the rollover part. Everything else is just exactly what you would expect, except there is no toes. So this, as far as I'm concerned, could have been right from this guy's foot. This all found right here on my property. And they say this is the Triassic era rock section of the world. Is all Triassic rock on the surface. Dinosaur State Park is right down the road from me, and they have all these dinosaur footprints in this mud. And it was, you see the gray clay and then the red bed? That's reversed. This pushed the gray clay down through a wet red bed. And I have the rest of this that comes right around it. This is all red bed. And the gray clay got pushed down, and then the black cap came on top. That's Triassic. It was all wet at the same time. So the Triassic era was not 250 million years ago, number one. Number two, it happened almost on the same day. All three of these layers were wet at the same time. The red bed got pushed down through the gray clay. The gray clay got pushed down through the red bed. The red bed is just dissolved flesh that boiled off the creatures and started to coat the layers of the oceans underneath, which is just nothing more than mud. And so Yale is just crazy with the sand stuff. They're just trying to take credit for my work. It was all mud, and then the creatures ended up sinking into that mud or laying on top of that mud and drowning, and then they got all these flat spots from where they were laying down in that mud, and then the mud basically coated them, because the mud is nothing more than flesh. It's nothing more than flesh. When your body parts are in that mud, it's almost like being in flesh. And there was nucleophilic substitution all over the place, which is the same thing that happens within your flesh to deliver products to all these different organs and everything else in your body that needs nutrition. So it's performed the same basic functions, and the nucleophilic invasions and substitution finally found stability, and then they turned solid. Now, I don't think it was in a couple of hours, although I probably told Yale that, so they wrote it down. Anyway, we're going to get so deep into this that, you're going to need hip boots, my friend, because this is true. We're going to wade out of the lies and the subterfuge. They've hidden this research. This has been suppressed. That is against academic rules, to suppress valid scientific information that is just unwanted. That's not right. I think they call that fraud. So we'll have to see what happens about this, but we're going to go on and keep examining what has been denied us about our reality and the truth about our lives. And anybody that's in archaeology or geology or literally any science right now, stay with Mudfossil University and me. Roger Spur is my name. And I hope that it will be understood that the things that I am presenting are not just conjecture and things that I just made up to try to make myself look like I'm special or something. This is stuff I found, and I'm not going to walk away from it and let somebody just say this doesn't exist, just shut up. Because as I said the other day, this will never not be true. This will never not be true. I don't care how much they ignore it. I don't care how much they push back against it. It can never not be true. It's true. So let's get into our big, deep discussion and dive onto this. And of course, Velikovsky comes into this over and over and over, because he's the one that did the research that showed all of these events happened at a certain point in time, not too long ago. And everybody recorded it on the face of the planet. So it's pretty obvious that it did occur, and this is the result. And again, they're starting to come around and acknowledge the research. You can't stay away from it forever. You can't hide. Even Yale changed the name of geology. I'm not kidding you. They changed the name of geology. You see this? This is kind of funny. I kept going after them. I've been sending them emails up until just a few months ago. Finally, I'm disgusted with the whole thing. But I kept sending them stuff saying, you're going to look terrible. You're going to look like fools. You're going to, I said a lot of very, very nasty things. But I was done with them by that time. And even, look what they did. In 2020, Yale to rename geology and geophysics. And then it comes down and saying, we learn it all. Look at what they did. Look what they show. Mudfossils. They know it's true. They just don't know how to break it out into the reality world, because it destroys everything they've said about Darwinism and all of that stuff. It supports all the things that were said about God and Jesus Christ and all of the things that they've told us to wash our minds away from. And that's called menticide. We've been menticided. And if you can't break out of that, your mind is still going to be sick. And it is sick right now if you believe all these things, and you have to believe peer review is, if they don't all agree, well, they can't be true. No, that's just ridiculous. They all agree because they don't want to be destroyed. And they will be destroyed by academia. That's their biggest thing they do, is destroy people. I don't see much research. I don't see much research at all. The research I see is just, oh, you figured this out by doing all these calculations and thinking about this and thinking. No, I want to see hard evidence, and that is exactly what I do. I am what I call a material scientist. You ain't got no material, you ain't got no science. I love you all. Stay tuned. I'm going to get very, very deep. Okay, I don't even know if I showed you this. What happened was, after they extracted this excellent quality sequences from these two, the 36-inch tip and the lung, and the other one was just as good too, but it wasn't as dense. But it also showed the exact same thing. They were all Homo sapien mitochondrial cytochrome B gene and D loop region. And that's in here somewhere, I mean, whatever it is. And they show all of these sequences of the CTAGs, which are the amino acids in the DNA sequences. And this was very, very serious test, and it wasn't cheap, and it took a while to do, and I wanted it done without question what it was. And he said there's no question whatsoever, 100% certainty, that this is literally identical to modern human mitochondrial DNA. And these were supposedly, well, I know they were mud fossils, but they claim in Yale that this was before the evolution of all the new animals on Earth. And it's right in that area. Most of the species did get wiped out. But there had to be all kinds of creatures that did not die. That I'm very certain of. But we see these things that are just crazy creatures that, you know, and Yale says the same thing. They say they don't even exist today. None of them, well, not none of them, but, you know, they're bizarre, and a lot of them just nothing like they are that exist anymore today. So I agree with some of the things they say. And then I'm looking into the DNA databases for the Neanderthals. This is Smithsonian. And I see half of the people on Earth look like that now. So, I mean, what was the relationship between the Neanderthals and modern humans? I don't know. I'm trying to find out Neanderthal footprints. What did they look like? And they show all kinds of crazy looking feet. Let me see, DNA tests. Neanderthal feet. You know, I think maybe I showed you this, but nobody knows what anything is like. They're just guessing. Really, it's just guesses now. This one here is what do they wear on their feet. She did a big study on what they might have worn on their feet. And what's this one? Oh, that's just this woman that did it. And she is, I'm going to try to contact her. I was copying her email address. And, you know, she's going to all of these schools for learning prehistory and human origins, the University of York, and specialized in this and that. Well, that's fine. But to examine the evidence would be very important. So I'm going to see if she does. I don't know. We'll have to see. But so far, I haven't had one show any interest, but this could be the one. Who knows? All right. Phoebe, I'm going to be contacting you, kid. See what you got for me. Let's see if we can get together on this thing and change history back to what it really is. Okay, so we know there was all kinds of different architecture of the feet, and of course the Notoes are big rounded bulbous things, and the toes were not separate. This looks like the toes were separate, and this is a foot from Stonehenge, which is called the heel stone. And they just think it's a foot. I mean, anybody look at that, they know it's they just think it's a rock. Anybody look at that, a kid will look at it and say, "Hey, Daddy, look, that's a foot." These little dots at the end are where the blood vessels end on fingers and toes. They call it the terminus or terminals or whatever they call it. And the blood runs down here and comes back through the vein side, back to get recharged. That's vein blood. This died on this side, laying flat like this. Most of them have a flat side because it was a great flood, and they died and they drowned, and then they were soft when they hit the mud, and then the flat side laying down turned flat. This one here has the same thing. This side's the flat side on this one. See it? I don't know if you can see that or not. You see it? That's just flat, and they all have basically a flat side. Again, where did my lung go? Here it is. This was again CAT scanned, and this had to die with the guy's heart still in his body. That's where the heart sits, right behind this lung, which is the left lung of a human being. This is a human DNA tested, and again, I drilled into there and got literally raw blood out of here. And the same thing with the other ones I did. So, and there was no question. He said there was no question whatsoever. It was dense, and it was good quality, and it was exactly as reported, and it was the same as mitochondria of human DNA. So we got some thinking to do about all the things that we've been told, and I really have the only research that's valid on this now. That's just a fact. I'm the only one, literally in the world, that has the research that is validated with solid evidence, material evidence. There's no guesses here, and everybody else is guessing, and throwing out all these crazy numbers, and then talking about. There's a lot of things I could really criticize right now, and this is just the beginning. So don't worry, there'll be a lot more to come. So, and to trust the university system now, you're being a fool to do it. Let's put it that way. So, because it's just not trustworthy anymore. If they won't investigate stuff like this, how could you possibly believe what they're telling you? All right, Mudfossil University, come up and get educated in reality. Because I have like literally 2,800, something like that, 2,800 videos. And everything you've been told is either suspect or just completely wrong. And again, the things that I present with evidence will never not be true. They will always be true. So they can avoid it forever, and which they will try to do. But as people become aware and start to have the guts to talk to other people about it and say, what do you think about this? You don't have to be confrontational. As a matter of fact, you can't be confrontational. It just leads nowhere. It just ends up with a standoff. You have to say, what do you think about this? Did you see this guy? He's crazy. What do you think about this? And then as they say, oh yeah, that's nuts. Say, well, wait a minute. What about, did you see this? And then you have to, it's actually called the Rogerian argument. You have to, be sort of tricky the way you bring them into the thing and show you compassion for their deep-held beliefs, which are going to be shaken. Virtually everything is going to be shaken in your life if you pay attention to what I'm showing. Just a fact. Not my problem, but not my, it's not my doing, it's just reality. And if you want to live in reality, you're going to shake. It's just the way it's going to work. All right, again, Roger, love you all. Talk to you later, and stay tuned, because we're going to get deep into reality.